Okay, it's 6 p.m. Thank you. Welcome to the Subcommittee, Public Safety Subcommittee meeting. Today is April 16, it's 6 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by City Media. Present is City Council Salem, Derby, and Owen Gomez and the Chairman. We have a few things to discuss. We're not approving any minutes from the last meeting because we don't have a meeting yet. We're going to have another meeting next week. Yep. We can do that next week. Before I start with the new businesses that is about the polls, we set the meeting specific for that. We can continue it with continuous businesses. First, we're going to start with the Fox Run acceptance. We're ready to go for that. It's going to be ready for tomorrow. So we don't have to do anything. The deed is signed by the person that have to do it.
And we moved it out of committee, right?
Yeah, it's moved. So we're just waiting for that, and it's done. So tomorrow I have the motion to do it, and we're going to do it tomorrow.
Great.
About the parking and traffic and regulation, we set a meeting with the police chief last week. He canceled at the morning because what happened to the police in Maine. So he went to the service, so he couldn't do it. I don't know if you remember, we were talking about what we can do about the parking next to the crosswalk inventory and all that kind of stuff. Yep. So we're going to keep discussing that. We're going to keep talking about that next meeting and the future meetings. Now, that I guess a lot of people, it's really interesting to talk today, is about the crosswalks. Pedestrians safety review, especially the crosswalks. I received a few emails. I don't know if you do too. Yep. Received a few emails. Most of them was in favor of what this group is doing. Most of them was in favor of flags and what we're doing in our community. I received only one. They don't want the flags. They're against it. They feel sympathy what happened with the person that had the accident a few months ago. But basically, they don't want the flags. I don't know if Councilor Derby want to say something about it.
I mean, I saw the emails.
You see the emails?
I did.
Yeah.
Do
you want to say something about the emails?
Not really.
Okay. All right. Right, I'm going to open the discussion to the public and let them talk about it. And if anyone wants to say something, now is the time to talk.
What's our time on it roughly? What should we try to keep ourselves to?
A couple minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name's Ben Taylor. I've lived in Easthampton since about 2009.
Yeah.
I've been walking in Easthampton for most of that time, and I have to say that for probably the first 5 years, it seemed like I was the only person on the sidewalks in town. And I really feel that that's been changing quite a lot, especially since the bike path has been extended down to the Southampton end, and the washout was improved. It's really clear that Easthampton is becoming much more of a pedestrian community, and I think that's something that we should encourage. But I think there's a number of things I want to say. I live on the Southampton end of town, and I walk to work at a business in Bach Plaza. So my walk is about 2.5 miles through town, all within city limits on Route 10. So about 0.9 of those miles don't have a sidewalk at all. I understand that part of that is state highway, but there are a number of homes along that state highway. There are large multi-residence apartment complexes. College Highway apartment complexes is a elderly and disabled home, and to have no sidewalks to service that area at all, I think is atrocious, frankly. But to go beyond that, for the remaining 1.6 miles of my walk, The existing sidewalks, they're severely neglected. They are crumbling in many spaces. When it rains, there are large stretches that become flooded. And you have to walk in the street if you don't want to get your feet wet, which is obviously not safe, right? And then in winter, those spots become ice skating rinks. Most of the crosswalks, I don't think, have been repainted in years. They just vanish partway through the street. There are stretches where the sidewalk crosses side streets of Route 10 where there are no crosswalks at all, there are no stop lines. I would like to say that I've noticed that a lot of motorists in this town don't know which line is the stop line. It's the one before the crosswalk. You stop at that line and you look both ways before rolling up to the edge of the street. There are people who are walking, jogging, roller skating on these sidewalks. If you don't stop and look, you could hit someone. I myself was struck in a crosswalk in this town February of last year. I'm lucky that I was only injured, not killed. And so the removal of the flags from the Glendale crosswalk in particular is personal to me. And I think that the complaints that I've heard about the flags, I think that the people who are making these complaints ought to be ashamed of themselves. That they are prioritizing the avoidance of eyesores or tackiness over people's lives. And we should remember Denise Herzog here. So, and I can say, as someone who walks to work 5 days a week in this town, that I've noticed that they work. The flags work. You know, since they've been put in place, I don't know whether it's just that I'm more visible or that the motorists feel a little bit more shamed into, hey, I actually can't say I didn't see you because you're waving an orange flag with a reflective piece of tape on it. I saw you, I'm going to stop now. My wait time at crosswalks has dropped considerably since the flags were put there. So I know that the flags are not a long-term solution, but I think that a long-term solution requires significant investment in pedestrian infrastructure in the city of Easthampton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I live on Knight Ave, which you walk by every morning, so I thought I should go next. And
Can you please say your name and
oh, sorry, my name is Connie Dawson, 12 Knight Ave. I walk with my granddaughter. I've been doing that since she was born 2.5 years ago, and I find it absolutely harrowing to try to cross Main Street at any time. Sometimes it's worse than other times. And Glendale, I never would cross at Glendale. And speaking of Glendale, I am offended by the fact that there's no curb cut there. It's a very high curb, no curb cut, in front of the cemetery.
And the Veterans Home.
And the Veterans Home. And it, you know, so what happens is, even in good weather, if you actually want to cross there, you have to go to the nearest driveway, walk out into the street, walk along the street until you get to the crosswalk. That's dangerous, to say the least. Also, it is never shoveled. You would have, in the wintertime, you would literally have to climb over a snowbank to use that particular walk. Now, at night, the nice people who moved into the house right where that walk is, right after they moved in, the poor people happened to be outside while I was trying to cross the street. When I got to their side, I said, gee, I hope you're always going to shovel your way to this crosswalk so that I can get across. And they do almost always do that. But a lot of people don't. And while we're talking about trying to walk up Main Street, there are snowbanks at almost every crosswalk. They are not cleared. And the whole issue of ice is also very true. Now, as it happens, both Glendale and Knight have those great big enormous green signs that should be alerting people that there's a crosswalk coming. But I really honestly think that many people driving are just don't even realize that it's there until they've gone by and they kind of go, oh, were you trying to cross? However, I have seen people do things like a car will be stopped and I'll think, oh good, and all of a sudden the car behind them will pass them.
Yes.
That is not unusual. It is also not unusual for some nice conscientious driver to stop And the people going the other direction, they must think they've broken down, because they don't take that as a signal that maybe they should stop. If I had a child, now I understand why this is true, but in this city, if you live within 2 miles of a school, you have to walk to school. I would never let a child walk to school in this community, never. It is too dangerous. It's too bad, because this should be a walkable city, and it absolutely is not for many people. But I think that the thing that everyone should be the most ashamed of is the fact that disabled people cannot access the sidewalks and the crosswalks in this city. That is horrible, and we should all be ashamed because of that. I feel that the flags are a great idea, but the city really needs to take care of this problem. This is a city issue. Thank you for the flags. I was very sad that the Night Ave flag was there for such a short time, but that's not a long-term solution, and we all know that. So something must be done about the harrowing experience of crossing certain crosswalks in this city.
Thank you.
There's somebody behind
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name
You're
is
first.
Teresa Brew. I've lived here since '99, and I'm at 9 Night Ave, so Connie's my neighbor over there. And I echo all the things that you said, and I was so excited. Barut, B-A-R-U-T. And I was so excited when we had those flags at Night Ave. I posted on Facebook like someone stole them. I really was there for a day, and then they were gone. And then you said they were back, and then they were gone again. And I'm like, someone who thinks it's an eyesore is stealing them, or anyway. And I was so excited. But crossing is difficult. I have 2 dogs that are not always easy to go in the same direction at the same time. So I don't want to step into the road with them. If they see a squirrel or something, I'm like, ugh. So that's why we're gonna have a dog park someday, but that's another story. You really said everything that I feel there. And Glendale one, when you're at that veterans home, ready to cross, you not only have to look right and left, you have to look down Glendale, because they're stopped there and they're ready to turn, and so they don't necessarily see you. They're too worried about the traffic.
So
they don't even know
they're turning left.
Yeah.
That's difficult enough.
They don't even know there's a crosswalk there. People would complain that, you have a flag, you're not invincible to walk the street. If I have a flag, I'm going to stop and I'm going to be more mindful, and I'm still looking to see if people in the car can see me or not. But I have good eyesight. Not everyone has good eyesight. Not everyone can see the person in the car, or the person is wearing sunglasses, so you're not sure if they're looking at you or anything. So anything to make it safer, more visible, and I as a driver am now paying more attention, because I'm not perfect, and there have been plenty of times where I've been distracted as well for various reasons, so I am more mindful of seeing them, and I would love them back so much. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He was first.
Yes, Jonathan Frost, 250 Main Street, next to the Vikings Landing home. I was very saddened to see that first, there have been no flags, there have been no curb cut on the eastern side of the cemetery side of Route 10 there in Glendale. There's never been a curb cut going on 5 years now that I've lived in Easthampton. So that's kind of one thing. I took a couple of pictures. I'll forward them on to the appropriate folks. But then to one day wake up and be walking up Main Street, and I'm like, I can see the flags. I'm like, oh, this is so great, and I wanted to go down to the art store and thank the wonderful lady there for putting them up there. And as soon as they were there, they were gone. I'm not sure about the details about that, but because I am currently more disabled than I was previously, I just had a neck fusion. I'm going to be like this with a walker for around 3 months, with a collar for 6 months. So it is what it is. But I alternate, in good weather, I alternate my route. I would go up to the crosswalk and I look both ways, and I have to kind of like take my walker and do a 180 in about 6 steps and make sure. And then I will put my walker out. So I have to step down the non-curb cut there, and then I look again, and then I start across. And people that are very obviously exceeding the speed limit from the Williston dorm, new dorms there, Payson Lane, coming from there or even coming from Union and Main, as well as coming, well, both directions, north and south on Route 10. A lot of those folks are very clearly over the speed limit by a good 10 miles an hour. I don't know what kind of studies have been done for that to get accuracy on that number. But I'm trying to do my part, now that the weather is good, to use both sides of Main Street, but that requires me to cross at that crosswalk. So it is very much still a problem, and it doesn't matter if I'm wearing more than 500 square inches of yellow and reflective tape. It just doesn't matter. People still will not see me. I was hit in 2017, October of 17, and no, October 16, and then the following May, it would have been 17, in Northampton. And once it was a very young girl who has more enamored with her phone and putting her foot on the accelerator on Main Street in Northampton, and was doing almost 40 when she clipped me, and I took a step back. So I got brushed. I didn't get, really hit, but I was like, "You gotta be kidding me," And then the next time I was going to ServiceNet, and there's a crosswalk right in front of there on Pleasant Street. And again, the driver of a van was clearly not, he just was not aware of anything. And he told me as much after he hit me at that crosswalk, that he didn't hit me hard, but it was enough that I knew he made contact. And I'm like, so I started yelling at him, and I said, "Where's your head?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, I was really distracted." Well, thank you for being honest, but so anyway, this is a cause that's near and dear to my heart. Every winter, it's much more of a problem, whether I have a walker or my normal disability or not. I've recently been bringing this to the mayor and the representative from the police department, and trying to come up with some way to make sure that the city ordinance pertaining to snow and ice removal and maintenance throughout the winter months, the people who continually violate the ordinance, they need to be cited. And they need to be cited, currently there's somebody will go and knock on the door. Okay, give them credit for that. But then it happens that the next day, and I call up the police station again. I don't call 911, I call a non-emergency number and say, "Hey, it's the same house, 168 Main Street." And this went on for 7 or 8 days in a row. But every time an officer would come out, the best description I got was, there was little to no ice at that address. Well, there's either ice or there isn't ice. And there hadn't been, this homeowner hadn't been treating it for a long time. And apparently the police chief doesn't appear to want to cite people under this ordinance. I don't get it, So I'm hoping that this coming winter, they're gonna look at this more seriously, because there are more and more older, I'm gonna say 55 and above, living in Vikings Landing and 250 Main and Wright Street and up on the hill and over Adams Street. So I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone in dealing with the sidewalk issue. And the DPW did say, when I met with them back in early March, that all I had to do was to call the DPW office directly, and they would send someone out right away to take care of the sidewalk in front of the cemetery. So, okay, I'll take it on faith that that's going to happen. that's all I can do. Whoever's
Yeah.
next, I yield my
Sarah?
time.
No, I was gonna say she's next.
I'm Sarah Amoroso. I currently live on Winter Street, though I used to live on McKinley. And when I lived on McKinley, we lived there when my first son was born until he was about a year old. And I tried to walk with him one time in his stroller. And I said, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it anymore. Now we live over on Winter Street and my children attend Maple, all three of them. If you would like to shorten your life expectancy, try to walk 3 children to school. It's nerve-wracking, and we had the, frankly, very upsetting experience of walking home from school on the day that Denise Herzog was hit.
Oh my gosh.
And my children were asking me, what happened here? What's that? What's all that stuff in the street? So she was not someone I knew, though practically everyone I know seems to have known her, and she was a lovely person. But that was a very clarifying experience, and I'm very grateful for the presence of these crosswalk flags. Really, Annette stands up by Maple School, and she has saved my life or my children's lives many times, because people come around that corner, and even though the 25-mile-an-hour zone is further up, they don't see it and they don't care. And sometimes the police officers are there, and they have been there more often, which is a relief. But we have to cross the street sometime, and it's a stressful experience. And the flags work.
Yeah.
They work. You can stand, and if there's no bump out at a crosswalk, you're basically standing behind a car, and you don't want to let your kids off the curb until you know that it's safe. Because once they get out there, they're like, yeah, go. So having that flag that you can, get out past that car is very important. And had something like that, had the crossings been more appropriate, or even something like a flag been available at the time that I lived, in McKinley, we would have had a better quality of life. We would have been able to go places. We would have been able to walk around and do things. So it helps adults, and it really helps children, because, it's scary walking with kids, especially if you have to cross Cottage Street. You do it all the time, right? So that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, she's next, and then me.
Thank you. I cannot see from here. Thanks.
Wendy Taylor Jordan, 10 Sheldon Avenue, and I walk around town a lot, and yes, I agree that we need more curb cuts and so forth, but one night I was driving home from the center of town, and there was a man at the crossing at Glendale. This is when the flags were there. I was doing the speed limit, which is 35, and suddenly I saw him. He was all dressed in black. I would not have seen him at all. The position of the street light at Glendale is on the pole after the crosswalk, and when they had the old light bulbs in that splashed light everywhere, that covered both poles. Now that crosswalk, there is no illumination there at all. So I mean, who knows if that guy had crossing the street at night in all black is stupid inherently, but if the guy hadn't had that flag, who knows if I was just going along at 35 miles an hour, if I would have seen him fast enough to slam on the brake and miss him.
Thank you.
Annette Siegel, Mutter Street Crossing Guard, so who knows. Everybody is saying fantastic stuff. We all need something done to the crosswalks. We all need the flags. We all need this. But unfortunately, you can't do anything about stupidity. The drivers that come through town, I see it every single day coming down Holyoke Street. I can be in the middle of the crosswalk with a stop sign up and they just drive right by me. There's nothing you can do for that. So flags are great. we all have to take the initiative also to be great so that we can monitor, like I said, stupid drivers. I mean, I had a Saturday I was crossing in front of Keystone in the crosswalk, took out my flag, nobody's driving close enough, got in the middle, this SUV comes over with elderly women, and they start yelling at me for walking in the road with a flag. And I'm going, I'm in a crosswalk. It doesn't matter if I have a flag or not, I'm in a crosswalk. So it helps, it's good. I wish we could get everyone to use them, to get everyone to understand that this is what they're for. It's never gonna change stupid drivers, never. Nothing we do, lights, police, nothing. There are always gonna be stupid drivers, and unfortunately, there's, like I said, we can't do anything about that.
Thank you.
Agreed. I'm
Name and
here.
address, please.
I'm Cindy Bowe, and I live on Briggs Street here in Easthampton. And I'm hearing so many wonderful things that everybody's saying about these flags, and it really makes me happy. I'm sure. I'm looking at Julia; it's practically in tears over there. So, and that's great. But now I know maybe you don't take questions, but we're all here so far in support of the flags. So what is the problem? Where are the people that are not in support of the flags? And why is this such a huge issue if there are so many people that want them and that find them very useful? And also, I agree, we can't fix stupidity, right? But the flags are part of educating the public. It's part of educating the people that come through this city, that don't live here, that use it as a thoroughfare. It's like, here we are, here are the crosswalks, and this is what that's really distracting. This is what we need to do. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
But you were asking, if people are complaining.
So where are the people that are complaining? Thank you. And I also, for somebody to take something that we put there and move it, steal it.
It's vandalism.
Twice. Three times. Once I found them across the street from 7-Eleven. I'm like, what's this cone doing here? That should be, in my eyes, illegal. And if these people are so upset because it's an eyesore, then they should be here, or they should be pitching in, and they should be doing something to change the situation that's in the city, because I know that it's a tight budget. I understand that. I understand all of that stuff. But, so, of course, these are not a long-term solution. It's hopefully going to be a short-term solution. But in the meantime, it's educating children. It's educating the drivers where the crosswalks are, 13 of them on Cottage and Union, maybe 14. And also, it might help the stupidity. And the other thing, while we're on safety here, is my concern is the tax man with all the blowing things. If we can't put signs up to slow down on the veterans things because it's going to take people's eyes off the road, that's an issue for me. It looks like somebody might have complained because they took one of the blowy things away. But they have the tax man sign out, and they have the blowing thing, and then they have the guy dancing out there sometimes, and it's like, that's distracting. And there's a crosswalk right there at Shelburne Falls. And then the other thing is parking too close to Center Street and Railroad. There's no lines, and so here's Center and here's Railroad, and somebody will park right there. So you can't get out. You have to kind of pull out, and you can't see anything. And I keep calling about that because I work at Silas's, and I keep calling about that. And people, I even said to a person, please don't park there, it's dangerous. Oh, I'm just going in for a second, but the place is packed. All right, so anyway, that's what I have to say, and I really appreciate everybody's feedback with the flags, and I really wish that the people that were against it were here. And you said you didn't want to share the emails, but I would like to know how many people are actually complaining, because I've heard that there's quite a few.
I think I've gotten 2.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah, it's not a lot.
This might be a good segue for my little if I can say something, if that's okay, because it kind of.
Yes, you can, because you didn't say anything yet.
Because I know, I feel.
Please, your name is your address.
Juliet Moores, I own a business on Cottage Street. Cindy and I were out there making flags and we started the flags. Okay, so it broke my heart to remove the Night Street and Main Street flags. Someone came, sorry, I'm so emotional. Someone came to me and said, a friend who's actually donated to Safe Walks, he's a council member, and said that the mayor's office, town hall, and police station have been getting so many complaints, so many calls about, especially about the Night and Main and Glendale, those two ones that I removed. I was asked to remove them. I don't know where that originated from, but since it's a state road, I felt like I felt like I would be held accountable if I didn't remove them. I didn't want to remove them. I'm sorry people thought they were stolen, but I have them. They're in the basement of the art store. I want to put them back. We have the woman who lives at the property right at Glendale says we can put a post in her yard, attach flags there, it'll be on her property. She's all about it. Fine. Can I do that? Because I feel like I have to ask someone. I don't want to. I was asked to not
That's
put
your
any
property.
more flags in residential areas. Ferry Street, I know Amy might talk to.
So that's a yes. It's her problem.
Well, I still have more to say on that, but
Okay.
that was part A. Part A. Part B, I was asked not to put any more safe walks up in residential areas, which leads me to Ferry Street. I know there's a lot, Howerson Street and Ferry Street, very, very dangerous. The woman who lives on that corner of that house said I can attach.
And a lot of kids walking from school.
Yeah, said I can attach, and that's another blind turn too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
whatever we can do without any city money, which I would love to say, this has been funded by the community. Not 1 cent has been from the city, which I think is beautiful. And I have a little kitty, I have a pot of money that I'm like, we can use to do a couple more at these dangerous spots. So that's totally taken care of. Who do I talk to at this point to get the flags back on Main Street and possibly Ferry Street? Legally, like those the two emails that you got, I was under the impression that you guys were getting like bombarded by.
I haven't been.
So I don't know, and I know the person who spoke to me as a friend, has donated money to this project. They're not kind of sabotaging me, so I think he was just saying, hey, as a heads up, you might want to remove those because something weird. Maybe that guy threatened the person who wrote the letter. Maybe he threatened to do something. I don't know where that originated from, but I was like, well, I'm not going to put my family or my business or myself in jeopardy. I will take your word for it, and then I'm trying to rally all you guys to come and support and try to get them back. So thank you for all coming and doing your work. But what do I do at this point? What do we do at this point to get those to come back?
Yeah, without them getting stolen.
Locally, we have the mayor here.
Behind you.
Wait, anyone else? I'm sorry. Yeah. Name and address, please.
Eli Damon, 14 Ward Avenue. So I'd like to say more about the condition of the sidewalks and also about the design of the streets. So I'm a member of the Commission on Disability, and the condition of the sidewalks is by far the most common type of complaint that we get. Our sidewalks are ridiculously narrow. They don't drain properly. They're all broken up. They're often like obstructed by various someone will. It's like someone said, "What do we do with this telephone pole? Let's just
Put it in the
stick it in the
sidewalk."
middle of the sidewalk, right? What do we do with this signpost? What do we do with right?" And also, they're not cleared. They're not cleared during the winter. We have this ridiculous system where everyone is, we don't have a system where we can ensure that all the sidewalks are clear. We have this ridiculous system where you have to go to every single person in the town and make sure that they cleared their their sidewalk. And, you know, I attended a meeting with the mayor and Mr. Frost and a police officer, and, you know, the police officer said, well, we'll put a, you know, maybe we'll put a little more time into, you know, knocking on people's doors and, you know, and reminding them that they have to do that, but, you know, that's not a real fix. Right. The point, you know, the rule, the law that we have about, you know, each person being individually responsible for clearing their sidewalk is basically a way to say, like, I don't really care whether this gets done or not. And, you know, so there's that. But not only that, that's not even the deepest thing, because regardless of how vigilant we are about maintaining the sidewalks, there will always be reasons why someone will step into the roadway, and we shouldn't have a system that's so fragile where if anything goes wrong, someone's life is in danger. People should be able to step into the roadway for any number of reasons and still feel like it's safe. And that brings me to the design of some of the roadways. So Main Street, for example, has been discussed. There was a few years ago, there was a talk about, you know, the Main Street, South Street intersection, how it's really hard to cross from South Street, you know, because you know, it's hard to right, it's hard to yield to the traffic on Main Street. And I mean, what I notice is that the from curb to curb, it's unnecessarily wide there, and you know, and you know, with a wide shoulder so that people have a, you know, can stay like a comfortable distance away from the curb and have a clear view so they can focus on the horizon and, you know, go really fast. And you know, in other places they don't do that. Like, you know, I mean, in Orlando they have huge streets with many lanes, but they don't have wide shoulders, and the lanes are all very narrow. They might be 10, even 9 feet wide, and you know, it really makes people be more careful to have, you know, the environment closer into them, right? So they can't just focus on the horizon. They have to look around, and I think we need to think about what our priorities, you know, what our priorities are, like, because in the past we've really made, you know, moving as much motor traffic as fast as possible the priority, and everything else, you know, we said, well, we really don't care about that. And I think if anything, it should be the other way around. I mean, walking is like a natural, essential function of, you know, of being human, and driving is not. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but we have to keep
I'll be really
going
quick.
to
I
the.
didn't get a chance to
You have to
talk.
be really quick
Yeah,
because
I'll
we
be
have
really
to.
quick. Yeah, so I just want to say quick.
Please, your name and
Amy
address.
Landau. I live in Easthampton, near Ferry Street off Parsons. And I heard about the woman who, Denise Herzog, you know, who was killed in broad daylight while walking on the crosswalk, you know, in the crosswalk right on Cottage Street, and was really horrified, like all of us. And when I saw these orange flags everywhere at the crosswalks, you know, I thought, what is this? This is so wonderful. It's so simple. It makes so much sense, you know. And so, especially because I live near Ferry Street, as you know, Juliet mentioned, and I like to walk, and I should be able to walk without risking my life, you know, to cross Ferry Street to get to the bike path or wherever it is I'm going, and the cars just, you know, the whip by, and many of them don't stop at all, and similar things that other people have been saying. And the idea that people are saying that these flags are an eyesore just made me think, well, death is an eyesore, a much bigger eyesore, and a heart sore, you know. And we shouldn't allow that to happen. And I agree with people, what they're saying is that until we have like better safety infrastructure for these streets, which would mean traffic lights like walk and stop signs, or lights, flashing lights, things like that,
we need this. This is what we need. And I mean, yeah, it's true that there will be drivers, you know, I've seen them on their cell phone or whatever, so you still, it's not going to protect you, but it's better than nothing. Much better. And as a driver, I have become much more conscious of this and careful. So I do think that it does affect some drivers, not all, obviously, but and I know that somebody else said that as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a lot of stuff in our agenda, that's why I'm gonna stop it now. I'm sorry.
But I think before we move on, just to let people know, since people haven't been coming to our meetings, that we've been looking at this issue intensely. And it started even before the tragic accident. We were looking at the South Street intersection. You know, I think we're keenly aware of the issues on Main Street. And I mean, in fact, nobody even mentioned the fact that there's no lines painted on the sides of Main Street, you know, and that's a major problem too, because then, as Eli said, it looks wide open. You know, so this is something that we have been really looking at. We've been brainstorming every meeting we have, and Annette has kind of she's been to all of them. You know, and I think that, you know, we welcome your presence here, and we want to hear you. And you know, I mean, it's great that we have the planner and the mayor here. And you know, just like one thing that's on the top of my head, back when Stuart Beckley was the planner, one thing that we looked at was an ordinance that would require anytime a street got paved to redo the sidewalk.
Yes, please.
So, you know, and that's something that we never did, and you know, but we also inherited the sidewalks that we got, but we haven't, you know, it's in tough budget times, it's difficult to prioritize that. So, you know, it's something that is important, and I think that all of us appreciate that, and will work towards, you know, making the future of those things better, because it is on our radar. So I just wanted to say that.
And before you say something, I know if you make a few questions. Good thing that we had the mayor here tonight. Probably she can answer a few of them. So now it's time for the mayor to talk.
Well, thank you.
They'll slap you later.
So one, I would encourage folks here to come to the Public Works meeting tomorrow, where we'll be discussing what we have prioritized in the past, and the director of Public Works has put together kind of an overview of streets that are in the worst shape, and put some cost estimates to them, $6.6 million. One of the streets is definitely Main Street. I forget the Ferry, Parson Union, Cottage Union, Main, Ferry, Parson to East Street is another one. So there, I'll don't want to say any spoilers. Is the meeting at 6? I'm sorry.
I think it's at 5.
5:15.
It's 5. Yeah, 5:15.
Yeah.
And it'll be upstairs in conference room 1. It's the beginning of a discussion. There are some answers and conversations that will happen. It's at the request of the board, but I encourage folks to attend. As far as where the flags are or aren't, and Cindy and Juliet, we've had the conversation. It's a volunteer effort. I have talked to the police and to the fire, DPW, as long as it doesn't impede, snow removal or anything else, they're fine to go up. It's a volunteer effort. It is a short-term solution, and folks who have called or stopped me on the streets to talk to me about it who have not been in favor, and it's been more than 2, but I can't say it's been a dozen. They're, eyesore, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Their concerns really have been that this is a forever thing, and that it will be instead of road and pedestrian safety, which is an easy answer of no, it won't, and hopefully that'll be resolved soon. So as far as where they are or not, it's kind of the rules that apply on Union and Cottage, which you guys started. I know that there have been some businesses and also some residents who specifically asked for them. And if there's issues, questions, or whatnot that you're receiving, then get hold of my office or Chief Alberti, and I've been fielding a lot of these questions as far as what's going on. So we put them up then?
Yeah, if you
Put them back?
yeah.
Yeah, what happens if they?
If anyone wants to join me for coffee.
All right.
We have a
Give
meeting.
them to me, I'll put them out tonight.
So the other, I would just say, kind of along that, as far as people grabbing them and stealing them or throwing them, I will say it best, it's a slippery slope. It's a volunteer effort, and while nobody should do that and it's somebody else's property, it's out there for everyone to use. So I just don't, I feel like I have to say that, not with any authority or directive from the police, but I do think it's a slippery slope. Obviously, if we see something happening, take a picture on your cell phone, and we can follow up, or that can happen. And then, what was the other thing I was going to say about it? There have been some questions, and the folks who have stopped me on the street or come to my office around liability, because it's a volunteer effort and it's on. There are utility people here, I think, so I won't say on poles, but I'll say on signs and
They're fine
cones.
on the poles unless we have to replace them.
There we go.
They're fine on the telephone poles?
Well, we don't take anything off the telephone
Right,
poles,
there.
right? So
I was told to not go near the telephone pole.
you shouldn't, but there's always signs and things that end up there. They stay there until the pole gets hit by a car, and we change it, and then we generally take it
Well,
off.
my husband works for Verizon, and he's like,
That's what he
you
said.
never know when a pole can become charged. He goes, do not put anything on a pole. I was like,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take his, I don't want anything bad to happen.
Yeah, there've been some questions about liability and flags.
But we have cones, so.
Yes, but just liability as far as using a flag and crossing a street or
Yes.
with that. I would just say,
Use it
I
at your
would
own
just
risk.
say use it at
Yes.
your own risk, but there's also clearly from the folks in this room a good list of already stated liabilities that would, I think, more clearly fall into the city's purview. So, okay.
Thank you.
Jeff's gonna be
Jeff.
out soon, so.
I'm going to turn it into a pumpkin, but so I would be remiss to not just take one step back. So this effort is quick and it's effective, and if we're agreeable that it's not the final solution, that's really good. I mean, I think that it's important to just remind people that this has not been something that the city has done nothing about. So you have to take a long view on some of this work. Some of the desirable improvements they take time, but more importantly, they take money and funding. So I've talked to a couple people in the room. We did an effort in 2020. I wasn't here, but the city did an effort in 2017 under the Complete Streets program, and so many of the sidewalks, problem sidewalks, have already been inventoried, and so the city has a list. It's like 177 projects have been identified in sidewalks, crosswalks that are in need of some kind of upgrade or repair. And what we did subsequent with that list was apply for actual funding. And so, this will never be fast enough, and the tragedy on Cottage Street makes it so much harder to kind of explain this. But that list generated a prioritized list and a project on Cottage Street, which is going to upgrade a couple of the crosswalks. So I think one of the next concerted efforts is to revisit that list and go through. We need to pick priority intersections to move to the top of the list and seek further funding. So I think there is a way to get to the long term, but it's going to take some time. I think most people know, so there are going to be some improvements on Cottage Street. Union Street is going to be reconstructed in 2022, so that's a full reconstruction of all the sidewalks on both sides, upgrade of all the crosswalks, but that's going to be a couple years out. Similar timeline is the Ferry Street project, so the mill redevelopment is accompanied by a new street improvement, which is going to be a roundabout at Pleasant Street where you dip down to Ferry, so that's going to be a much improved pedestrian area for crossings, and there's a multi-use path proposed along Lower Mill Pond with a new bike path connection. So we've been taking every opportunity to find funding or a project to make these upgrades. So Cottage Street will be upgraded. Union Street is funded by the state, and Ferry Street's also funded. So those are big projects, but I think the next effort is to revisit this prioritized list and figure out amongst some group what is the next most important intersection to work on, and then seek the Complete Streets funding. I mean, that will only cover some of this, but, and then to Eli's point, with the Commission on Disability, we did apply for a grant, but we didn't get it, to do an inventory of city property. One of the things was going to be key crosswalks and sidewalks that are definitely not ADA compliant. So I think that there's still an avenue to pursue there with you know, the curbs that do not have an ADA ramp. You know, though there is funding for that kind of improvement, so we might be able to make small incremental changes along the way. But I would be remiss if I didn't say some of that while I'm sitting here. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. First, I want to say thanks to everybody for being here. I'm sorry.
I got to tell you, I just want to say, according to the city calendar, that meeting tomorrow is at 4:30.
No, 5:15.
Yeah, we can discuss that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to say thanks for everybody to be here. Thank you for the mayor for the answers. I think she didn't answer only one question. There was a wordy question, where these people are.
Yeah.
They're on Facebook. And no, it's true.
They don't have vote there.
And but it's true. They're not here. But we received 2 emails, and we represent everybody. So we have to talk for them too, and that's our job. So they are not here present, but they send emails, and our job is to talk for them too. So that's where they are. But basically, most of them, they're on Facebook, talking about a lot of stuff, bullying a lot of people, including us.
And so then we're stuck here talking about an issue that's really a non-issue. And it's a non-issue, you know, and it's taking up all of our time, but where are they? That's what
and the email they send to our emails, they're public. People can ask for them, so you're free to ask for them. So yeah. But I have to. I'm sorry. I have to keep moving.
I have to leave and.
Yeah. So I'm really sorry.
How do you request them?
To the clerk, if I.
Wait, to what?
For the.
Or you can just. I mean,
you can
just ask us and I could forward them to you.
The meeting, DPW meeting is 4:30.
Is it 4:30?
It is 4:30.
Right. What I'm going to do with this is to keep talking to the next meeting. That's why we can move to.
Let's get these polls taken care of.
Yes, that's what it is.
Let's go.
There's no sign-ins that you can document how many people showed up.
We're recording everything.
And we recorded everybody that spoke as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
I hope
you.
that you take note. I think there's like 18 of us or
There
something.
are 20 people total on that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll move in 1 second.
If you can talk, we had yes, we have this come in our agenda. Sorry. Please, if you want to talk, can you please go outside, because we have all of this stuff in our agenda.
I have 9 minutes.
We have that. We're going to do it in 7 minutes.
Yeah, we can.
If they.
Because we have
With Jeff.
public.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Technically, it's not our motion, but they want
Excuse me. It's on. Jeff. All right, we have request for relocation of 2 poles.
Yes.
For One Credit Street project.
Yes.
And we have
That's my understanding.
we have Jeff here. We're gonna talk now about the 2 pole relocation.
Relocations. Let's start with the relocations.
Yes.
Well, can I make a request? First, I have Diane Rossini is the city staff engineer, is also here with Mike Rosenberg from Eversource, and I didn't catch your name. Paul Davis from Verizon.
Okay.
And this is to Councilor Derby. I think there is some work that the planning board can do at 7 with you being here. Yeah.
Okay, that's
so
fine.
what I
and I technically don't have to be there. Owen's gonna be there.
Okay.
So if we take a little longer, it's fine.
Okay, so if I could propose that we switch the items, Diane, Mike, and Paul can talk about the pole and conduit petition, but if I could just intro the 4th bullet, which is easement request.
Okay.
to bury utility lines and install concrete pad transformers. That's the one that, I just want to introduce that, and then I'm gonna depart for my meeting upstairs. So, what the city council got in their packet was a resolution. So, I'll go through some of the details, but what it seeks to do is have the city council resolve to give the authority to the mayor to execute these easements. So these easements are for two purposes. Verizon set a poll on city property, which they can do by poll petition. This was about a month ago, 2 months ago. And the proposal is to bury the power across the city's property to connect to Building 1 of Ferry Street. And Eversource requires an easement to do that. However, we don't have the easement language in place yet.
Okay.
And to try to keep the timeline of the project moving forward, the resolution shows an approximate area where the easement will go, and resolves to identify that the project is important to the city. The easement will ultimately give power to Building 1, and then would ask the city council to give the authority to the mayor to execute that once we have the actual easement language.
So it would basically just allow there to be an agreement in place before the language is in place?
Correct. And so the secondary item is along the bike path. The city has the city's sewer main runs basically under the bike path. So the second part of the resolution is to again resolve to allow the mayor to execute an easement to allow the sewer to extend over the bike path property and connect to Building 5 and 7. So the reality is that we're trying to just keep the pace of the project going, to put this in front of council to show that in this vicinity there will be a sewer easement for this purpose.
Right.
If we were not doing this, then we might be 3 weeks from clarifying language, and then we would submit something to the full city council, and then it would run to subcommittee and run back to full city council. So we would, in theory, we would lose about 2 months of time. So this was, the resolution was prepared by the city attorney. It's fairly common in other municipalities to give the mayor the authority to execute the easement. So it's a little bit belts and suspenders that we're trying to do this, and there's what wasn't in the initial packet was Exhibit A and Exhibit B, so they've been relabeled for the meeting tomorrow as Exhibit A and Exhibit B, which match the resolution. So
I mean, it's no brainer as far as I can.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Great,
All right.
thank you.
Are you?
I'll move
Make a
to
motion to the easement.
Yep.
The request to bury utility lines and install concrete
pad transformer.
transformer.
Yeah. Since there's nobody else, you know. Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
You got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay. So I'll stay for another minute, but I think who is the proper person to bring up first? Is it Verizon or?
You guys want to talk about
All three come up together?
all three together?
Yes.
Let's do it.
I'll go.
Okay.
Michael Rosenberg, 144 East Street, Southampton, representative from Eversource.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. So at Ferry Street, the road relocation redesign project, at the city's request, we are proposing to relocate our overhead electrical utilities along with the communication facilities underground. So it is Verizon's pole set area, so they petitioned for the pole sets. We are petitioning ourselves for an 8-way duct bank, so a conduit duct bank with a 5 by 10 by 7 manhole in the center of the run between the two poles. The reason for the size of the duct bank is because whenever you go underground, you're limited to what you can do, right? Overhead, we can put 3 circuits on a pole, we can have different attachments. Underground, you dig it once, you pave it, and you can't really dig it again for 5 or 6 years, right? So we want to make sure that what we install is sufficient for any future growth. We have substations in Southampton, we have one over Midway, near the Oxbow, so we want to make sure we can service all customers, provide alternate feeds, reliable power. So that's why we're proposing the duct bank. We mapped out a route with the civil designer in the all parties regarding the plan. So I think for the duck bank, we have a route, and Verizon's route is very similar to ours, generally common trench. The civil work will be performed by the general contractor, so they can lay out the duck bank for us. They'll pour the concrete, they'll procure and install the manhole. We'll double check. I live in Southampton, so I'll be doing drive-bys. I pick our son up daycare down the road. So I'll be stopping in to check on the construction. It's a good project. You know, when we had originally met, we talked about having the GC perform the civil work. It does reduce the cost for the city because they're going with the excavator, digging the holes, digging the trenches. For us to mobilize, it just costs more, right? So.
And would you say that the 8 conduit is relatively similar to what is feeding the mills currently? Like, so it's on par?
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, just knowing where this is geographically, we settled with an 8-way. You know, we have talked about like Union Street, for instance, if we were to do some sort of underground option there, that'd be a 12-way duck bank. So that is an inner city size duck bank for sort of center city work. This one we know what we can and can't do there, so we did undersize a little. It saves a little bit of money, but it also affords room for future fiber. Sometimes fiber companies like to buy into our duct. Especially with no poles there, they're going to have to find a way to get one way or the other. So.
Now, if there was, if they decided to do a decent amount of generation, like photovoltaic, on top of the new buildings, do you think that would support that as well?
So the cable would. Okay. But the actual circuit requires a circuit study. So it goes through an application process. We have a group that studies the circuit, sees if they can handle the added load from the generation. It is a long process, so if it is something they're looking at doing, they should start today.
I don't know if that's something they're doing. I'm just looking forward.
Yeah. Some of the large like open field systems, those studies go for 6 months, sometimes.
That doesn't need to hold this up. I'm just curious. Yeah. Thanks for entertaining me.
Because we have to put up certain equipment to regulate voltage. Right. It affects downstream customers, upstream customers, because you do have those dips, those ups and downs of the generation, which sometimes creates issues for the neighbors. We need to make sure we put up regulators on the line to regulate the voltage.
So can I add a couple quick things before I depart? So I think this was good practice for tomorrow. So I mean, the full city council has not gotten a huge amount of information about the Ferry Street project. So I think Mr. Rosenberg dived right in. The Mass Works grant always anticipated the burial of utilities. Right. So this is the section. So I added a memo to the council's packet to try to give a little bit of visual. Okay. So this is the rail trail crossing here. And so there's the deck that's at the entrance of Millside Park. So part of this is a pole relocation to shift this existing pole over. Yep. And then it's the burial, essentially, it's the removal of 3 existing poles which run along the water.
The poles would be in the multi-use path.
And the poles would be in the multi-use path if they weren't removed. So just in terms of big picture, I figured it would be helpful just because it hasn't really come full discussion. So this will be the first of a set of items that the city council will see. Will see over the next couple months. I think that this is important to initiate now because the companies want this assurance that this has been approved. As we get the MassWorks funding in place, we won't have to come back for this part of the project. So just for final clarity is that the proposal right now is that the utilities will run within 1 lane of Ferry Street to keep it on city property. There is a unique situation where this paved portion, the apron along the pond, is actually on private property associated with the mill. So the utilities are going to pull and be buried within Ferry Street, and that doesn't require an easement. So that was one of the purposes for cleaning that up. So it's really the poll petition process.
So this one is a request from Eversource to install a conduit duct bank for the 1 Ferry Street project in the form of a motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Great. So do you think that, can you anticipate any other types of questions that the council?
Well, on the other one, I think JP will probably ask about authorizing the mayor about an easement.
Yeah, please.
Right.
So just be ready for that one.
Do We didn't do the,
so
the conduit and
so that's Verizon.
Oh, there is a conduit petition too.
Right.
It's a conduit
they are both.
petition, yeah.
So tomorrow, are you prepared to come tomorrow at all? Did that in you as well? Okay. So
We haven't voted it yet.
there are two separate petitions. One is for the pole relocation.
Right.
Yes.
And then there's
There's
one for
one
the
request for the two pole relocation, there's one request for the conduit location for 1 Ferry Street, and then there's another request for Eversource to install a conduit duct bank on 1 Ferry Street, and the easement.
And so that includes the Verizon one. Okay.
Yes.
So we should make that motion as well.
Right. I think
The
they
Verizon
got
request to
groups.
conduit.
Yeah.
So if I could just clarify, so there's an actual request from Verizon and there's a request from Eversource.
They are independent.
Two separate requests, so we'll vote on them separately.
Okay. Right.
Yep. All right.
And the conduit and the pole
And the pole relocation.
are separate in regards to Verizon.
Yeah. There's three.
I think this will be good for you to gain the clarity for tomorrow.
We got it. We'll
Thank
start
you.
there.
Okay,
Okay. So we've we haven't voted on the pole relocation yet, but that's a joint request. So I think that one.
Yeah, that's one as joint. I have as a joint request for tomorrow too.
Yeah.
On the motion.
Okay. So I move to bring the joint utility request for 2 pole relocations to the 1 Ferry Street project to the full council.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Yep. All right. And so, is there anything that we need to know specifically about the conduit for Verizon as opposed to, because they're 2 separate requests? But is there anything that we should know about it that would help us?
Well, basically, what I was informed in regards to the project was this was a beautification project for the development across the street. So in essence, from what I gather, is the cables are going to be taken down along with the poles, placed in 2 conduit. I mean, like I think mentioned 9, wherever it was. Verizon will place 2 conduit with a manhole in between the 2 poles being petitioned tomorrow night.
Right.
Okay. In Ferry Street, in the street.
In the street.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in essence, really, the whole objective is to take down what's there up in the air, existing today, putting it underground, and that's it.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
That's really simple. And now, if we have an 8 Eversource conduit and we have a 2 Verizon, so it'll be 10. Okay, that's just want to clarify.
I mean, there's electric utility duct bank and a communications duct bank going in. You know, if we start counting numbers, it's people are gonna want to see pictures and what's it look like underground.
We get it. All right, so I'll move the Verizon request for a conduit location for 1 Ferry Street project be moved to full council.
Second. All in favor?
All right, so hopefully tomorrow night will be smooth as well.
Yeah, I would just thank you both. I mean,
Yes.
I can't, and certainly tomorrow I will. One, Diane's work on this project and pulling the timeline together, especially dealing with the state and the timing of our MassWorks contract. And I will say, throw MassWorks under the bus right now on camera. They told us that Eversource and Verizon would be a big block and that we would never get them on site. And here you both are. And Diane has worked so hard, and you guys have been great partners, and it really makes this go. I mean, for this not to come off in this timeline is a tremendous block to the project. So thank you very much. And
Thank you guys.
When does that get posted? Because I'm going to have to play
Probably in a week.
Yeah.
I don't have any.
You're gonna have to fast forward an hour.
So I think we should adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? Aye.
Okay, good. Yeah.